we are, at this moment in time, going live on YouTube TV. Now, some of you say, okay, YouTube TV, that's something different. No, we are calling this YouTube TV. That other stuff, it's not real because we're talking about narc abuse awareness. Narc Abuse TV network is now live on YouTube with 4 beautiful people. Michelle, Eve, Sarah, and of course, Lady Anashka. Thank you for being here, all 4 of you. We this is not our first rodeo. We did this already once before, but now we are on YouTube. Now, I could talk all day, but that's not what we got here for. We got here so that everybody could comfortably get situated. We have all spent time on Instagram with live shows, but now we are here to talk about narc abuse awareness and a whole lot more, but mainly healing from narcissism in 2021. So the best thing to do is for me to stop talking and turn the music off, and let's get to it. All right, here we go. Now, I thought of 50 billion different ways to come here and be on YouTube and make it really nice and polished and slick and all that stuff. And that's not going to happen because this is a low budget show. I have my finger in here somewhere. Low budget show and high caliber guests. So that's what we got going on here. I am going to start off by letting everyone that happens to watch this live and joining us, as well as those who will watch it back later, get to know each one of you for a little bit before we start the questions. We had a number of questions the first time we did this. We did it via Zoom for up to 500 people to get a chance to participate, as well as a number of people to watch it over and over. Right now, a lot of people may not know who all 4 of you are, but the reality of it is there were 5 of you. There were 5 of you. And so everybody right now, before we get started, this will mean nothing to anybody that will watch this except Trisha. Everybody say hello to Trisha.
Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Trisha. We miss you. We just want to say we miss you, Trisha, being here with us. Trisha will join us again for show number 3 when we do it. But technically, Trisha has her own little project she will be doing with me. That will be on December the 18th. December the 18th, she'll be doing that. So right now, Michelle, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you are, and why did you even volunteer to do this?
Thanks, Paxton. Welcome, everyone. I'm Michelle Dixon, and welcome to part 2 of the Healing from Narcissism live panel of professionals. I am based in Sydney, Australia, although I am from Atlanta, Georgia, so a long way from my original home, and I work with trauma survivors. I'm a body therapist. I'm a holistic coach. I have a specialty in trauma release, and I work really somatically to help people not just recover from past trauma, but then to create a life that really lights them up. And I'm really delighted to be here. We had some great questions last time. I really actually learned a lot from my peers, these other professionals who work with people in the trenches as they're exiting from and shortly after recovering from narcissistic abuse. So that's me, and I'll move on to Eve.
Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Eve Bradley. I'm an abuse recovery mentor, and I'm in the UK, you can tell by my accent. I work with women mainly who have just left narcissistic relationships, so I specifically work on breaking trauma bonds. So I'm really use a whole range of techniques which are focused on reconnecting the body and the mind and promoting self-regulation techniques and really coming through that really, really difficult time where everything's changing in life. I really enjoyed the last panel show that we did. We got so many great questions, some great feedback, and hopefully we're going to be able to support and help and inspire and empower some more of you tonight with this, or today, wherever you are, with this show today.
Hi, I'm Sarah De Silva. I am a life coach. I'm currently studying psychology. So I practice NLP, timeline therapy, and a range of other tools that I hand over to my clients to help them to heal from not just maybe a current or previous recent narcissistic relationship, but mainly childhood narcissistic relationships we have with our parents. And I help you to not only put up boundaries and gain some independence, I help you to become fearless and to navigate every other situation and relationship that comes after that. And I really loved being a part of this panel last time because we all have amazing knowledge about this topic, but it's not all exactly the same. So it's great to have all of us here. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Anushka. I'm also from the UK, like Eve. I am a psychologist practitioner, and I work with people to help them regenerate and self-generate from toxic abuse using a wide variety of therapeutic approaches. You may or may not know me from my YouTube channel, which over the years has been quite popular in helping other people to educate them to understand about narcissistic abuse and trauma. And I really enjoyed being a panelist from our last show. It was absolutely wonderful to get to know what each and every one of you all do. Each of you have this amazing gift and working with people who have gone through narcissistic and toxic abuse. So it was been absolutely amazing to meet such wonderful angels.
Oh, that's really amazing. I'm glad you didn't put me in that mix of angels, because I'm the troublemaker. I'm the troublemaker here.
Bringing it all together. Absolutely.
I just want to say one thing that's very important. Sarah, do me a huge favor. Drink from that cup nice and slow again for me.
I want one.
Oh, nice.
Sarah, you teacher's pet.
I really like collecting mugs. I'll say that.
I'm sorry.
Love mugs.
I had to do that. This was not planned. By the way, Eve put that cup down. That doesn't mean anything. I was just teasing. Okay, look, seriously though, there are things that we talked about last time that were quite serious. There are a number of people that were there that they needed to get some things off their chest, and that's what we're doing this for. But enough of why we're doing this and who we are. It's more important to us here at Narc Abuse TV Network that we establish this platform and a series of opportunities for people who feel emotionally unsafe to find a place online that they can put on their big screen TV and watch this, a bigger platform other than Instagram, though you will see us there as well, along with these beautiful, lovely ladies. Last time we had some questions we just didn't get to. Yeah. We were literally not able to get to. And we wanted to do this live, free, and no registering, not a workshop, nothing like that. It is a community speak with these 4 and technically 5 who are part of the panel. Michelle, what do you have for us that we didn't get to, or recap some of the things that we had in the way of questions last time? By the way, everybody that's watching this, and we'll watch this back later, feel free to comment in the comment section, or to bring in a question if you like. Bring your question to this panel. There are so many different questions that we still have outside of from last time. I know, I have them in front of me. You have some. All of us have questions from people that deal with us. Michelle, what do you got?
I'm not going to recap the whole of part 1 because it's available on YouTube. You can go watch it. But we talked a lot about boundaries and being strong in your boundaries and setting boundaries. So some of the duplicate questions I might just leave, but I will refer back to that in part 1. I have a question we didn't get to, and just so everyone knows, this is a live discussion. This isn't scripted. All of us as practitioners, we have come with our own questions from our clients, our followers. So this is just going to be a free flowing conversation. But we'll start with this question because I didn't get to it last time, and I think it's a juicy one. So I'm going to read it. It came through my Instagram. My adult son can only see me through my malignant narcissist mother's eyes. How can I help him connect with who I really am, his mother rather than her scapegoat? It's pretty big stuff. Pretty big stuff. We want to have these healthy, loving relationships with people who matter to us. But what if their perception has been compromised by the narcissist in our lives. Yeah, so I'd love to hear what others have to say about that. Whoever would like to go.
I'll take it first. So I'll just talk a little bit to living inside our truth, because that is something that can be very uncomfortable at first when we come through these relationships, or when we're in situations where the truth is warped by somebody and we are picking up on that, or we feel like we're always trying to get to the truth and the truth seems to change, or it seems to be manipulated, or it becomes this never-ending battle to get to the truth. And eventually we get to a place where we have to get secure in our truth and accept that other people have a different truth. And I always, there's this kind of famous saying where it's, in every situation there are three truths. There is their truth, your truth, and the truth. And I personally take a lot of comfort in the fact that there is the truth, and the closer I can align my truth to the truth, the more I can get into karmic balance and some of those other less kind of quantifiable things start to take hold, and life seems to take a direction where we feel more supported. And so it's difficult as it is, remaining in your truth, trusting that he, and kind of cultivating and supporting him to stay inside his, hopefully leads you to both get to a place where he's able to see more and more that your mother isn't actually, as supportive, as caring as she might make out to be to him.
Yeah. And I'd like to add to that, that regardless of what the truth is, there's nothing wrong with expressing the truth to your son and saying, look, everything that my mother is saying, unfortunately, is twisted, and you're going to have to, in the world, find a way to discern between people who want to get something from something and people who are being truthful. But if he doesn't see or listen to that, like Eve said, your truth is most important. So therefore, if your mother is truly malignant, eventually it's going to rub off onto him in a negative way. And then he's going to wake up and go, wow, my mum was really talking the truth about this situation. And now I see that my mum was the victim. It might not happen straight away, but it usually does happen when they're in a bad situation with the narcissist. They start to see the slip of the mask, and they're like, oh, I now see what they mean.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Anushka?
Yes. I was just going to say that I think you're absolutely right, Sarah. I mean, it is about, the child will see through it eventually. But you see that the child has to they have to make up their own mind. They have to, assess all aspects. And I think in terms of, what's going on with the mother, with the person who has asked this question, how do I get my son to see through this? I think you have to be the stable person throughout all of this. You have to be the one that shows the unconditional love. And I know it's not a comfortable place to be in. It's not easy. But if you are the same stable, authentic person, your son will understand that you're not going to change. You have a stable sense of self. And he will come to realize that my mother makes me feel good, but my grandmother doesn't. And it's all about feeling. It's how your body reacts, how your emotions react to that person. They can't articulate it because they're quite young at the moment. But as time goes on, it will all make sense.
Yeah, that's a beautiful. And just to add, or maybe even it's to summarize what everyone has said, the way people change, the way they come to realizations about people, about truth, the way people come to truth isn't through being lectured to or having things explained to them. It's actually through experience. And I know that everyone has said that in a different way, but I think it's powerful just to remind you that that, you know, your son is never going to realize the truth of it by, you know, you explaining it or sitting down with him or showing him statistics or pointing out behaviors. I mean, those things at certain times can be helpful for sure, but just generally the way we as humans change our minds about things is through, it's an internal process, and it happens when we're ready internally, and nothing can speed that up or change it. So just to reiterate what everyone's saying, I think it's really about you just living your truth, as Eve was saying, and live your truth, be the person that you know that you are, and just hold that space. And when he's ready, for whatever reason, whatever he's going through in his life, when he's ready, that will open something in him, and then that will lead to the realization. Yeah.
There proves to be a number of things that people have as a challenge. The audience that will be watching this is varied. Some are beginning their journey, some are in the middle of their journey of dealing with abusive individuals, self-absorbed, selfish, mean people. So this show may not cover everything, but we want to open up the conversation with these questions that we have received. We received a question that I think as a group we shared amongst one another. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna, I believe, I'm not sure, did this come from you, Sarah? I'm not sure. How do you get your siblings out of the narc spell and into their healing?
Yeah, that came from one of my followers. Yeah.
Feel free to take the lead on that if you like.
Yes. Yeah. So I have actually spoken to this follower in particular about this subject because I have personally experienced the exact same thing. My siblings, you literally cannot control the situation that your siblings are in. And in my personal situation, my siblings have a disability. So there's even less communication and understanding there. So I cannot in any way convince my sisters that my mom is a narcissist. No, absolutely no way. So that has given me a challenge, but in the same way, it has given me an answer that regardless of who the person is, it's literally not your responsibility to help them to see that. They're going to have their own situations, and they're going to have to use their own reasoning to find out whether the situation they're in is safe or not. If they feel safe, they're getting something from the situation which is benefiting them, and they think that it's good. They think this is fine. I love it. My sisters tell me mom's a good person. Like, there's nothing wrong with mom. You should say sorry to mom. And I can't say, no, that's wrong, because that would affect their personal experience, right? So I have to go, you know what? My own reality is that I have this experience with my mother, and I'm dealing with it in my own way. If my siblings eventually see it, I always remind them that I'm here for you no matter what. I talk to them every day. I say, message them, you know what? If anything happens with mom, don't worry, I'm here. I'm always here for you. Or door is always open. I'm never going to shut the door for you.
Right.
And that's the best I can do.
One of the reasons why I wanted to touch on that here at the beginning of the show is because I wanted to ask Michelle this. Michelle, how does situations like that affect our body, affect the cells in our body, affect us physically? Because sometimes people are caught up in the situation and don't recognize that the situation is caught up on them and their body and is doing havoc to them. I just wanted to touch on that real quick, and then you ladies feel free to do as you wish.
Well, essentially, you know, when we feel stressed and overwhelmed, we go into fight or flight. So we go into a defense mechanism. And so you either can go into, you know, literally fight or flight, or you can shut down. So that has to do with your vagus nerve, and it's a personal thing, how your nervous system operates more from that fight or flight or shut down. But just, you know, even more concretely than that, what happens is a number of things happen at once. So it's not as if there's one thing that happens to everyone, but it can cause things like, for example, you can feel on edge and tense and nervous all the time, which can cause a muscle constriction. So you're holding your body in a way that is reflecting your fear and the fact that you want to fight or flight or freeze. And the way that you're holding your body, that muscle tension can create contraction.
Okay.
It can create less blood flow to certain areas, which can cause chronic pain situations. You might have, a sore back or sore shoulder or sore hip, and you don't understand how that's related, but it could be because of your emotional situation is causing you to hold your body in a certain way because you're in fight or flight. And then that lesser kind of oxygenation and blood flow can mean that you're not even getting necessarily the full blood and oxygenation to various organs and parts of your body, which can mean in some people can cause digestive issues, and other people it can cause disease. There's a high correlation actually between being a victim of trauma and abuse and autoimmune diseases and cancer even. And not to scare people, of course, this doesn't mean that this is definitely going to happen, but this is just to show that there's a cascade of effects that can happen into the body. So in any circumstance, when you feel that you're going into fight or flight, you recognize that you're being really impacted by a situation. It's really important to not just pay attention to, getting out of the trauma bond and doing that, that therapeutic work to understand what is happening to me, why is this happening, I don't even understand, but also to do work with your body and to learn throughout your therapy to settle your nervous system, to breathe more fully, to learn how to relax your body, to allow that trauma to release from your body. They're two parts of a whole. That was a very long-winded explanation. My mind is going like, oh my gosh, how could I possibly explain all the millions of things that could happen in like 5 minutes?
Really good explanation.
It was fantastic. Yeah, really.
You did an excellent job, and we still have 45 minutes left.
I would love to add to that point as well, that in that situation where you're having that physical response, in this particular question, if you're thinking about your siblings all the time and worrying about like, how am I going to sort out this thing for my siblings? Are you worrying about your own body and your own well-being and your own nervous system? Because if you're not, then it's on overdrive while you're worrying about everyone else. And I have personal experience where I was always doing that, always worrying about everyone else. And, I'm not saying that this is going to happen to everyone, but I ended up getting cancer, and I had to go through a process of learning how to completely stop putting everybody else before me and worry about me first, because if I didn't, I was gonna go,
yeah put on that oxygen mask first.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
You see in these types of and abuse, we are always taught, or we're always made to think of the other person and never ourselves. And it's so important to actually reverse that round and actually do think about, focus on ourselves. And it is, you're absolutely right, Michelle and Sarah, to put on that oxygen mask first, because we are just as important.
Absolutely. And it's a complete, we come at it from a complete beginner's place when we have put other people first for so long. It actually is a big question of how, and really tapping into, because you've delivered everything that you need to other people, it really is like putting yourself as your own best friend or as your own partner almost, and really supporting yourself and delivering yourself that kind of patience, that understanding, that compassion, that forgiveness that you've often given them over and over and over again with very little kind of reward for, actually giving that to yourself. And once you cross over that, once you flip that, that's when the healing can really start to happen.
And you might know that this is true theoretically. You might be hearing this now and think, yes, okay, that's true. And you might know, for example, that going for a walk in nature is going to calm you down, or sitting in your backyard is going to calm you down, or holding your cat is going to calm you down. But going from that intellectual knowing to making a practice of it is, like you've said, it's a leap of faith. We're not used to doing it. It may not feel like a natural thing to do. We might think, oh, I'm just going to stay in this contraction a little bit longer, even though I know I should do something. So go easy on yourself, because learning how to calm your nervous system, it requires practice. It has to become a habit, and it's not an instant thing. Yeah.
And you know, something just to add to that I found really helpful when going through that process and kind of, like you say, internalizing that theory, which, yes, it all sounds like it makes sense, but how do I apply it? Some interesting things is that it only takes 17 seconds for one of your neural pathways to fire. So actually it's making those changes really, really small and holding them for a short amount of time and focusing on that first one and then the next one and then the next one, and not trying to get from A to Z in like a matter of months or weeks or minutes, but actually just those 17-second moments can build up to completely and utterly transform your entire life.
I love that.
Just to sum up that particular question, I think a good question to ask yourself in these situations when you want to go above and beyond and try and influence other people in that way, like your siblings, for example. Ask yourself the question, what is this going to give me in the end? Like, is this going to give me validation? Is this going to give me healing? Is this going to solve my problem? Sometimes we think that if our siblings or the person that we really care about, if they know what's going on, if they understand, we're going to feel like we're validated and we're not alone anymore.
Yeah, we're back to that truth, aren't we?
But it's not necessarily so true, because the truth has to come from in here. You have to accept in here that I know what's true, and even if my siblings don't see it, that's okay. I'm living in my truth, and if they do eventually see it, I am the stable person that they can come to.
And the interesting thing, especially with narcissistic relationships, when it comes to that family dynamic, is often the different children, so the other siblings, play different roles to the narcissist. And so your experience of the narcissistic parent isn't the same as the other sibling, and actually trying to convince them of your truth could be completely futile, because like Sarah says, it's different experiences for different people.
If that's the case, and it's different experiences for different people, then we're looking at a situation in which that could happen in romantic relationships, at work. We can have this flow of a type of a relationship that we're talking about go well beyond siblings. So what are the tactics that are necessary there when we're talking about at work or in in a romantic relationship? A long-term relationship could flip on someone, just like a work situation or a sibling or a parent, because that person is in the relationship is very toxic. They're very self-absorbed, and they're out to cause damage. How do you navigate that?
Who wants to? I can take that first. I think the thing to think about with narcissistic personality disorder and these like narcissistic traits, where people have got a heavy amount of narcissistic traits in their personality, is that their self-image, their ego is so fragile that they adopt different personas in different situations all the time. And that's an important thing to remember, so that the person
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. You guys have all done shows with me, and I have to interrupt you there. What did you just say? Because that was really good. And you said it so, and it just went, and I went like, no, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you. I don't have a repeat button. And I have toys here, but I'm not quick enough because I'm still new to YouTube. That was good, Eve. Please repeat that. Persona, the whole persona part.
The whole persona of a narcissist is that they have these multiple personas to protect their really, really fragile self-image, because they are just, they're so damaged at the core. And so when we are experiencing one of those personas, and as you rightly say, Paxton, that persona can change through the relationship with the way that our situations might change. So the young relationship, they can be one type of person, and then add children into the mix, add a marriage into the mix, and things all start to change, because they are constantly looking outwards for validation and adopting these personas that they think will put them above the rest, have this sense of grandiose. And so we really are trying to box in people that will do anything to get to the next moment and stay within their power and not have this really fragile ego crumble under that strain.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I guess to add to that would be, in that situation, staying aware of, like, paying mental note to, okay, well, this person seemed this way, but now they're acting like this. I'm just going to pay mental note to that. And now, how consistent is that behavior? Do they change all the time, or are they just doing it on a random occasion? Or is this like happening all the time and they're starting to change into different personas that I don't really understand who they are? Are they starting to act in ways that are kind of shocking, like take me aback?
Okay.
And
are
then
they talking as one persona and acting as one completely different one? That's another thing that happens really, really
100%. And like the actions and their behaviors don't match up. And then when you bring it up to them, they will do things like gaslight you. So they'll do things like withhold or counter or divert the situation or project it back onto you, rather than take full responsibility and have empathy for how you feel in the situation.
Can you imagine?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say that. Can you imagine being like that? Can you imagine?
Not for long.
Yeah, but when you explain to someone, they are like, what are you talking about? Like, a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people who are in these kind of dynamics don't even notice. They don't even, it sounds far-fetched. It's very difficult to get your head around something like that. So I really want to bring to here, like, how could we recognize if you are someone who's watching this and is in this kind of dynamic, I'm just going to put this out there, like, what kind of the things could you look out for to kind of help you to identify that maybe you are in this kind of toxic dynamic?
And we spoke a little bit
all the time. Sorry. Yeah.
No, go Sarah, go.
Yeah, just have, like, one example would be having to defend yourself or make justifications for everything all the time. That's a very clear sign that they're trying to manipulate you.
Feeling like your life is going around and around in this cycle and that nothing ever seems to get resolved, that you move from one issue to another, and that there are promises of resolutions, there are attempts, almost short-lived, at resolutions, but it always falls back into that same pattern. That's a big sign that they're unlikely to be able to self-reflect and actually then adopt different behaviors and empathize.
The charm is quite massive in that sense. So they'll put massive promises. They'll make massive promises that are quite charming when you're like, oh wow, that's so lovely. Hold up with those.
No personal experience from any of you.
Gave up waiting on those.
I'm not going to touch that one. I'm not going to touch. Now, sorry, how can that? Oh, Anashka, you were going to say something, please.
No, I was just going to say the reason. You see, the thing is with people like this, who are so damaged. The reason why they do this is because what we're seeing in this kind of toxic behavior that they have. The reason why they're doing this is because this is exactly how they were treated by their parents as children. So they're just reenacting it. They are mirroring their own childhood back to you.
And that's an interesting thing, sorry, just to talk about the trauma bond, is that when we go into these relationships, the initial feelings are what we might associate with being love, and the behaviors seem to match with love, the words seem to match with love, but because, like Anushka says, that the way that they modeled love as a child or had love modeled to them was in the form of a trauma bond, most likely from a narcissistic parent or a toxic or abusive parent, is that's why they're able to mirror those behaviors and we're able to translate them as being this kind of genuine love that we might give out, but actually what we're receiving back is something very different. And that's where those cycles and those toxic kind of draining effect happens, and that bond isn't cooperative. It is very much a one-sided connection.
conditional. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to wreak havoc on a person's brain and their body. Yes, Michelle?
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, what I see in my work is I don't work with people while they're in it or trying to get out of an abusive dynamic.
Right.
So people come to me when they've already exited the relationship, they're trying to rebuild their lives, and they're trying to release that trauma that's been held in their nervous system, all of that tension. And the main thing I see from what I do at that stage of their healing is this incredible confusion. And it's like brain fog. Actually, what it is brain fog. And there has been a lot of research that's shown that brain fog is a consequence of trauma, that it actually compromises the connectivity in your neural pathways and creates this lingering sense of confusion, which is almost, it can manifest as like early dementia, not that dramatic, but I have seen this level of confusion, which is just, it's just amazing. And I had to look into it myself because I was seeing so many people presenting with this, and they were saying to me, like I'm just, the language that they use is, I'm just so confused. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm looking back at this relationship and I don't understand. Like, they're out of it, they're recovering, but there's this like confusion, like what happened and how did this happen? And it does affect the brain. It's really fascinating.
And we definitely see that in that sense that people don't actually realize how much abuse or how much toxicity or how much manipulation took place in the relationship until they're out of it. And then they report feeling stupid, feeling like that they should have been able to see this, that before the relationship they had good boundaries, that they don't even know how this happened. That fog is what almost settles and all of that stuff happens, and then afterwards when it's lifted, the truth comes out. And I'm a great believer that our minds present us with the things that it knows that we can handle in that moment, and so it's almost like it's that trauma response to be protected from what's going on, because we just don't have the tools, the energy, the capacity to deal with it when we are in that fight or flight mode, when our brain is really trying to keep us safe, not heal.
Because that's the other thing, that happens with your body and your nervous system is when you are in that fight or flight, when you are at that level of stress and tension, you're not getting as much blood flow to the brain. Your blood flow is actually going to your extremities and your lower body, because your whole system is preparing to be in flight, to fight. It's a normal response. So that does exacerbate the brain fog for sure. Yeah.
And when we're talking about the fight, flight and freeze responses, I did just want to mention, because I never know who this might help, but there is that fawn response that happens as well, where people attempt to placate other people's behavior, maybe through promises, charm, changed behaviors, even through sexual favors, just to try and make that that negative experience move on, the next phase of the cycle of abuse to be brought in sooner.
This is very
just to kind of reassure that if anybody feels like they've done that, or they feel like they've been in that situation, that it's totally normal. And again, it's your body trying to move you into a safer space physiologically and emotionally.
Thanks, Eve, for making that point. That's 100% true. It's often called the tend and befriend response, and that's your social engagement system. So, like in the polyvagal theory, so when we're looking at like the body and how we respond to trauma, there's fight or flight, there's freeze and immobilize, and then there's that tend and befriend, that social engagement, that people pleasing. And you'll probably know, you might see this in yourself or in people this kind of overexertion and trying to please people and make everything okay. That's it's great to normalize that it's definitely a response.
That really proves to be just a band-aid though. In the long run, that can't be kept up. Eventually somebody's going to have to make a decision to either stay or go, or have some extremely strong boundaries or something to exist in that type of an environment. What suggestion? And I'm gonna let me pick somebody. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eeny. Okay. Anushka. I butchered your name, and I know how to say it. I just say it the American way, and I terribly just butchered. I'm so sorry, my friend. But Anushka, You deal with a number of different things beside this when it comes to individuals. Sometimes a person can start to maybe drink a little too much, become addicted to something to try to cope with dealing and living with a toxic person. There's a number of things that can get in the way of their life beside being with somebody who's narcissistically abusive. And then they have to go no contact, eventually move away from that. And now they're stuck with maybe an addiction. Now they're stuck with something that they had never planned on being stuck with. Any advice to anyone who finds themselves in that situation that they responded to the trauma by adding more problems and challenges to their life?
That's a really, really interesting point. Absolutely. I in my work, I do see it quite a bit. Not only are they addicted, there are people not only addicted to substances, but I had a couple of clients who were saying that they were addicted to shopping, but also psychic lines as well. So they were trying to find out. They were trying
going broke.
And they had spent like literally hundreds and thousands of like dollars trying to get to the bottom, trying to find the answers. And I think with any addiction that is out there, whether it's a substance, whether it's a behavior, what we're trying to do is, like you said, we're trying to cope. Or we're trying to get to the bottom of something. We're trying to find the answers. And I feel like what you have to do, if you are someone who is going through this, it's just really, this is where you have lost your way. This is about connecting back to self. This is about understanding that actually, the answer isn't at the bottom of a bottle or, in any type of, drug or psychic line. The answer is actually already within you, and it's the trauma that's preventing you from actually seeing the truth. And sometimes the truth does hurt, but this really is about getting intentional and authentic with yourself and really understanding that this isn't, because what you're doing is with substances, you're altering your reality. And how is that going to help? How is that going to help you connect back to yourself? How is that going to help you heal? Don't get me wrong, it's great stuff and it helps. But what price are you going to pay with your health? So this is what you really have to understand, is like, what is it that you want? How can you help you? You already have the answers. You don't need substances. You don't need somebody else telling you something. This is really about connection. So that's, maybe even Michelle, you could kind of elaborate on this, but this is about, if you are experiencing trauma, this is about meditation. This is about journaling, perhaps, maybe, maybe there's other kind of like a breath work or something, those kind of exercises that would really help. So maybe you could elaborate on this. What could someone do if they wanted to connect back to self?
It's such a great point, Anushka, about, it's a normal and natural response to trauma is to not want to feel all the feelings because they're scary and they're overwhelming. And, it's a natural response to want to numb it out. But the fear behind that is if I feel these feelings, if I really allow myself to experience the devastation, there might be no coming back from that, like I might have a complete breakdown or lose my mind or go crazy. So that's the fear that's often prompting that reaction. And I just am here to tell you that, that's not going to happen. Your feelings aren't going to hurt you. I would advise if you feel like you really have like PTSD, for example, or you've been diagnosed with it, there's certain forms of meditation that are better than others. You can, for example, if you're afraid, you can try meditation, but do it with your eyes open and do it in nature. Make your meditation about, I'm sitting with my feelings right now, but my eyes are open. I'm safe. I'm sitting here. I'm noticing that I'm safe. There's a tree, there's a flower, etc. There are all kinds of things you can do, but the key here is to find a way to safely feel your feelings, because feelings and emotions, they're like waves, and they come and there's a crest and they can feel overwhelming, but then they'll pass. Nothing will last forever. No feeling will last forever. You will be you'll be bored by the end of it, you know, like you couldn't go on with it if you tried. But the key here, just to say one last time, is to find a safe way to really feel your feelings in your body. And that's separate from therapy, which is also really helpful, but find something you can do with your body to give yourself space and permission to really experience those feelings. And there are different kinds of body work that are really helpful with that. You know, you can Google body work for trauma release, body work for emotional release. There's TRE, trauma release exercise, certain forms of mindfulness. My mind is going blank. Chime in here
Tapping.
if you think of. Sorry.
Tapping. EFT.
Yeah. I do
dancing,
my facial release. Dancing. Oh, dancing's amazing.
Okay, I'm up for
and
that.
just
one.
working out, you know.
Yeah,
like,
working out exercise, especially hip exercising. It seems that trauma really gets stored in the hip area, and so really releasing the hips and like dancing, or there's lots of techniques. There's a trembling technique as well.
And yeah, that's right, TRA. And everyone's different and what their body responds to. What you're looking for is an emotional release. So if you, some people go to yoga and they just cry. Like yoga never makes me cry. I love yoga, but it's just never done that for me, right? But for some people, it is emotional release. Find a body work modality that's going to help your body bring that emotion to the surface so that you can work with it. And know that you're safe.
I'll add acupuncture to that one as well. That one's really good for me. It's worked really well for me. And exposure therapy, even if it's not therapy in itself, I have learned personally the hard way that exposing yourself to your fears is actually, like Michelle said, you know, in a safe way, it's an excellent way to move through the fear. But sometimes there's no way to avoid what you're going through, and you have to literally face the situation. And we can naturally go into that, like, I want to use coping mechanisms and avoidance to completely not deal with it, which will make me feel better and make me feel safe. But in reality, sometimes what will really make you feel safe is getting it over and done with and facing that situation, never having to deal with it ever again. So for example, like going no contact with a narcissist, for me, it was my mother. It was something that I constantly thought about my entire life, going, well, this relationship just doesn't make me happy. It really makes me sad. It really makes me feel terrible. But I was avoiding for so long doing the thing that I really wanted to do that was going to make me feel the most happy. And I used other coping mechanisms to deal with it. I would go to my mom's house and drink a bottle of wine to deal with being there. And now I don't drink at all because I faced the problem. I just went, you know what? I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm going to face the fear that I'm just going to go no contact with my mom. But you can do that with most fears. You can really just face the thing that you don't want to deal with. And then you probably will go, I don't need a drink of wine. That was enough for me. I don't need to use coping mechanisms.
It talks a lot to the way that we're socialized, the way that we experience pain is that pain to us is kind of directly related to how much tissue damage might be going on in the body. So the more something hurts, the more damaged something has to be.
Why you keep doing that? Why you keep doing that? Why you keep dropping stuff? What is with you today? What do you have oatmeal? Like, you have oatmeal like Michelle? Is that what it is? You just drop it and she just keeps going. Please repeat that for us, please.
Yeah,
for the people in the back row.
Our experience of pain is very much associated to how the level of pain is related to how much damage has occurred physically, but also we relate that to emotional pain. So when we are feeling a lot of emotional pain, we feel that it's related to how much damage has gone on. And actually sitting with that pain, finding a way, as all these ladies have said, to sit with that pain, to self-regulate that pain, eventually it goes away. And that is just because of the way that the brain works. The pain and pleasure pathways are primitive in our body, and they're some of the oldest parts of our brain. And the way that it works is that the pleasure goes up, the pain goes up to bring it back down, and then it comes into balance. It doesn't kind of even itself out nice and gently, it's equal pain to equal pleasure, and then come into homeostasis. And so often, whilst that's happening, we're trying to jump on the pleasure because the pain is so high, and we're trying to artificially create the pleasure, and that can be with substances and behaviors, and with continued behaviors inside a relationship or with the trauma bond as well.
I have to do this. We have to get to, I have two fundamental things that I'm going to try to accomplish before we get done today. And because we've all done shows together on Instagram, you know that I have my surprises that I love to put into a show. So the first thing is not a surprise. I'm going to ask a huge favor, a little quick round robin of whatever questions you have in front of you. Excuse me. Whatever you have in front of you, drop it into the panel here, and let's just have at it. And then I'm going to do one more thing before we go, and I'm not going to tell you until I do it. So, Eve, you got anything on the screen from?
I've got one here that just says, I've very recently left a 14-year relationship, enduring cyclical psychological and financial abuse for most of that time. I left 2 weeks ago after months of secret planning while having to live with my abuser for 6 months post-separation. I had expected to be hit by a wave of emotion and uncertainty and guilt, but 2 weeks into our new home and I'm absolutely fine. He barely crosses my mind. I feel light and happy and confident and excited for the future. In our experience, is this something other people who have escaped can feel, or should I expect to feel a crash at some point?
Such a good question.
I would just say that it's kind of like waking up from a cult a little bit. I think I said this last session that we did, and yes, it will feel like I've escaped and everything's fine, but there's a bit of shock that comes with it. So the shock will last a little while, and then the realizations start to come in, and they will hit you in whatever way they hit you, because it's different for everyone. But the realizations hit like a wave, like a whoa, like it's so shocking. I cannot believe that I dealt with that, that I accepted that behavior, that they did that to me, that they passed that over my brain. Like, how did I not notice that? So we're going to go through a process of going, like, we're going to pick up things that we missed. We're going to realize those things. We're going to look at our own behavior and call ourselves names, like Eve said. We're going to be like, I was so stupid. How could I have not seen that? There's going to be like a bit of a process, but then you have to do the self-care and use the tools, like do journaling and do some like self-development where you talk yourself through that stuff, like journal on that experience and go, okay, well, that's how it made me feel, but I'm safe now. Remind yourself, I'm safe now. I'm in this safe situation and it's okay. And I'm safe to feel these emotions, and allow yourself to feel them in a healthy way. Like, you know, cry, move, punch pillows and do things like that, because you don't want to hold any of that emotion inside your body as it comes up.
And I have worked with this.
Not good to hold it. I'm sorry. Not good to hold it in your body. For sure, right? That's
so really... when the emotion comes up and you feel like crying, sometimes we're like, I want to hold it in and just go, you know, you have the lump in your throat and you're like, I'm going to hold it in. I'm going to be strong. Okay. Sometimes that's not good for you.
No bueno.
You know, sometimes there's a time to distract. Like, I'm at work right now. I can't cry in front of everyone and lose it. There's a time to distract, but there's a time when, you know what, I'm going to really let this emotion out because it's no longer serving me. Once it's out, it's not as intense anymore.
It's that surrender, isn't it? Surrendering to whatever's coming in and coming up is so empowering. This lady, I have worked with this lady, and just a shameless plug, she has done my free freedom, recovery and transformation program.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that shameless plug?
Shameless plug.
Please, go right ahead. I want everyone to have a shameless plug. Go ahead.
A 10-module freedom, recovery and transformation program, which is really an introduction to the first steps to healing from narcissistic abuse. And it brings in a whole range of topics, really: identity, boundaries, financial abuse, and gaining financial confidence, getting in touch with your core values so that you can start to come home to yourself, as well as some of the kind of real... the stuff that happens inside the relationship, the physical effects and the psychological psychological abuse.
Beautiful.
But she has been working really hard, and she has very much disengaged, and she definitely broke her trauma bond whilst still in the house with him, which is an incredible thing to do, but also reassuring to people that it is possible to break a trauma bond when you are in contact with these people. Having children with them or having to see them regularly isn't a reason why you can't break these trauma bonds and come home to yourself and build up those boundaries and be empowered and feel that self-esteem again. It's an important thing, because a lot of times we get into that state. Well, this situation is that I have to see this person regularly, I have to be in contact with them, I've got this trauma bond, and it's just what it's going to be for the rest of our lives or until the children are grown up. And it absolutely doesn't have to be the case. And she has worked really hard to get herself into this new property. And I would say that there's no expectation of a crash, but if you continue to really embody your experiences and really honor yourself, then you will be able to kind of continue on the path of healing that you've already set yourself onto. And that's a really fantastic thing. So yeah, well done to you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I often say to people, that, life is your teacher and every moment is the healing. You don't have to go looking for things necessarily or waiting in expectation. You can take one day at a time and with your eyes open, really consciously engage with your life and allow, as feelings arise, allow them, as concerns arise, address them. And I think sometimes we have this massive crash event when there's been an accumulation of denial and repression or avoidance, and then that is just like a pot, kettle boiling over. But if we can greet each moment and each situation with consciousness and awareness, it doesn't have to be that big crash.
You have another question for us there by any chance, Eve, or anyone
I've got
else
one
that you got?
was very, very, very simple. How do I walk away?
Okay, that's like everyone's asking that question. How do I walk away? All right, ladies.
I guess it starts with making the decision that this is not working for you. The reason why it would be to, I guess, work backwards. Like, why do I want to walk away? And then you'd have to give yourself the convincing reasons as to why. And then ask yourself, are these convincing enough reasons to leave? And if they're not, why aren't I leaving? And then keep working through asking yourself those questions. Well, why aren't I leaving? Because I love this person, but why do I love them? Because they're hurting me. Why do I love them although they're hurting me? Maybe I'm in a trauma bond, or maybe I'm accepting behavior that I deserve. So if you can reason enough to get to that point where you're like, okay, well, this is not the right situation for me, then it comes to then really doing the scary thing about making that decision and then making the plans to do it. But sometimes that's too hard to make on your own, and sometimes you need support.
Yeah, acceptance is one of the hardest things ever, because it means you have to face the truth, and facing the truth or acknowledging the truth is very difficult. But there is no easy way around this. This really is about acknowledging actually what is happening here, and how do I feel? How is it making me feel?
And getting in touch with your body, as we've spoken, and we keep going back to it, but that disconnect that happens between the mind and the body in these situations is so profound and so prevalent that actually, even if you are still in a relationship, taking the time to focus your attention back onto your body, to start to get in touch with your intuition again, which you may well have fallen out of conversation with because of how many times you've ignored your intuition, because we all had those moments. And especially these are often when we talk about coming out and looking back and saying, I think, how could I have missed things? Because you can even remember feeling it, but you didn't translate it at the time. And so really cultivating that relationship with your intuition, going into your body, and all those things that we've spoken about today will help to give you that sense of self. And that's the important thing to remember, is they will never have a sense of self, but you can cultivate your sense of self. You can come home to you, and you can come home to your truth. And as you do that, the fog starts to lift, and then you can, like you say, get to that point where enough is enough, and you make that choice. And it does come down to a choice. It's simply said, it's hard to execute, but ultimately it is a choice.
And to add to that, just quickly, that you can ask yourself that the question, is this moving me closer to my higher purpose or further away from my higher purpose? Because if it's moving me closer to my higher purpose, well, then there's probably not an issue with the relationship, right? But if it's moving me further away, then it's really not helping my life as a whole. So, you know, is this is dragging me away from what's really important to me. And if you don't know what your highest purpose is, then it's time to question that and then apply it.
An honest sit-down discussion of what we've just been talking about. When is it time to walk away? When is it a time to leave? And trying to have that discussion with someone, you're probably going to get a productive conversation when you're dealing with someone who wants to build with you, who wants to keep you emotionally safe. But if they don't give a hoot, if they're out to destroy you, that's a problem. So some of the advice that's being given is on that basis, that we're talking about dealing with someone who doesn't care about you. We're talking about someone who is out to cause you problems. So that's why the advice, if you're watching this or watching the replay later, that's what these beautiful ladies are talking about. Trying to destroy a marriage or a relationship because someone just wants to walk out, that's a different show in itself. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about someone who is a victim of abuse. That is disgusting and not tolerable on any level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to get confused with relationship problems. And this kind of stems back to some of those societal things that are placed on us and in relationships, and maybe even religious, you know, beliefs or shared community beliefs that make it difficult to kind of break the mold. But we are talking about emotional and quite often sometimes physical abuse, even if it is only in the form of intimidation and aggression. That is still physical verbal abuse, verbal, exactly. And so, you know, all of these things are unacceptable behaviors. You are worth so much more than any time spent like this, and you are enough as you are, with your flaws and your everything. You are absolutely enough, and you deserve to be free and at peace. And it can't happen inside these relationships. It's just not possible to be at peace inside them.
I want to touch on a few things. Here comes the surprise. We're going to do a little bit here before we have to go, because we have two individuals that are here from Australia, and we have two that are from the UK. And those that are from the UK at some point need to go to bed. Not because I'm saying that, and I'm the oldest person here. I'm not saying that like I'm telling them to go to bed, but you need to go to bed.
That's okay.
So,
no problem.
Because somebody here wants to put their pajamas on, because that's how we did a pre-show. I was waiting. I was gonna save it. I was gonna wait till the third show to do it, but I just had to say it. Because we should have just made it all of us wearing pajamas and just had the pre-show
merch pajamas.
Merch,
exactly.
By the way, they're coming. You're laughing. They're coming. Boodles aren't.
Because in Australia we've just woken up, so we've got the pajamas from the morning, and then in the UK they've got them at night.
Yes,
it could work. It could work.
And if Trisha was here, we would be stuck in the middle, because we both would both be afternoon, midday. Yes, the middle of the day. Trisha will be joining us as a part of our beautiful, awesome team here. For show number 3. Now, surprise time before we are going to end this and prepare ourselves for show number 3 that will come next month. This is what we're going to do. I am going to say something to you that's narcissistic abuse community related. I want everyone to feel free to touch on their opinion on it, or express it, define it, expound on it. Because the audience is varied that watches Narc Abuse TV. They're at the beginning, they're in the middle, they're no contact. They're doing what Eve said her client was. She's learned how to prepare herself before she exited. They're all over the place on the spectrum of being a survivor and a thriver. right now, I'll ask you this. Touch on, as briefly as possible, or in full agreement, the definition for the word gaslighting. Sarah, I wonder why you want to go. I was going to say, Sarah, I wonder if you want to go first, but I know why. You are the queen of posting on Twitter. The queen of Twitter, Gaslighting 101. Go right ahead.
Yes. So I guess my definition of gaslighting would be a person's refusal to take responsibility for behavior that includes diversion, countering, stereotyping, denial, and withholding. So there's some techniques within gaslighting which will stray from the current issue that you're dealing with onto something else, to either deny your reality or to project something else onto you. That's my personal definition, I guess.
Ladies, thank you.
Covered that.
This sounds great.
Okay,
I just talk a little bit to
self-gaslighting
because that's something that
there you go.
All right. Very
exactly
the same thing, but it's doing it to yourself. It might be even replaying, and this can happen long after a relationship has ended. Is that you replay the same kind of tactics to yourself to try and convince yourself of a different reality, because we go back to that it's too painful to face up to the one that you're actually experiencing. And self-gaslighting is a really common thing. It's a learned behavior, and it sticks for a long time.
And I guess to add to that, I'll just say, what does it feel like to be gaslighted, to be gaslit? I'm not sure how to say that properly, but if you're feeling that you're feeling like you're feeling like I'm crazy, like everything seems to always be my fault, but it doesn't make sense because I'm sure that I did this, but then this person said this, and I don't even know what's real anymore. That feeling, to me, is probably the situation is gaslighting.
And if you ever feel that you need to record somebody saying something so you can play it back to them to prove what they said, that's gaslighting.
And the self-gaslighting. Sorry, Anushka.
No. I was just going to say that it's abuse. Either way you look at it, it's so damaging.
Yes. And the self-gaslighting would look like, maybe I did treat them badly. Maybe I was a bad person. Maybe I was a crappy daughter. Maybe I am such a bad person and I'm not good enough. That's what self-gaslighting sounds like.
And it's often to do with a disconnect from being really authentic with who you are and comfortable with who you are, and getting secure in those core values that you have and your sense of identity. It makes it harder for you to gaslight yourself, because when those thoughts come in, they don't match with the reality and you can move through them.
And sometimes self-gaslighting comes from problematic or dysfunctional childhoods as well.
Okay, good point. Now you're opening up the way for show number 3. That was pretty good. Let's do this. Consider this word, and let's expound on this before we end. The word is triangulation.
So triangulation, I can jump in on that one, is when they involve another party to try to justify their behaviors, to confuse the situation, to pit you against another person. So maybe, and sometimes they can be totally open. In fact, I've spoken to a lady today who as open as to say, I want you both. And, and it can be in a romantic sense, it can be with friendships, it can be with family members, but they involve other parties to kind of strengthen their position of power over the other people.
And that would include the scapegoating of another person. It's in a family situation with a mother and 2 daughters. The mother would use one of her daughters to triangulate against the other daughter to say that, or scapegoat against the other daughter, scapegoat the daughter and say that she's such a bad person, so you should stick by me and say that she's a bad person too, because that defends my story, and it makes them feel alone and isolated, which is what they want.
when it comes to the word that's often used to describe what people feel happens to them from a narcissist, explain and expound on the word love bombing.
Yep. So when, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, when someone's quite charming, like overly charming, and makes those promises that seem very, like really nice, really lovely, and you're like, wow, this person might also almost be too good to be true in a way. That's because they may have been love bombing you, and love bombing is like throwing gifts and nice, what's the word? Like nice
gestures, romantic gestures. Yeah, making romantic gestures, promises. Yeah, and often in that love bombing phase, they are essentially out to gather as much information as they possibly can. And that's often what's underlying that love bombing, is that in the giving, they are taking the responses, they're taking your weak spots, you know, what works, what doesn't work. And that way it can all start to be used against you once you move into the next phase of abuse, which inevitably comes after the love bombing one. And it can take months, it can take years before you come out of the love bombing phase. But when they subconsciously, maybe consciously, who knows, deem it to have kind of got to the point where you are so under the spell, then they can move into that next phase of manipulation.
Yes, that's a really good point, Eve, actually. And then actually what happens, this sets the foundation for the trauma bond. This is the beginning.
The love bombing
because
does?
This is the bit we're trying to
sets the tone?
Yeah, this is the bit we're trying to get back to, because it's the side of the cognitive dissonance which sets all the expectations of the behaviors, so that when future behaviors don't match a belief that we've formed about that person, we experience this sense of cognitive dissonance. And in that moment, we've got this deep tension that we have to resolve. And the way that we do that often is through things like self-gaslighting, where we try to adjust our behavior or take responsibility so that it would eventually change their behaviors to match that person they were at the beginning again.
Yeah. So in the love bombing phase, they'll say things. So after the love bombing phase, they'll say things like, if it's like you're bringing up the behavior, they'll be like, how dare you? Like, I did all these things for you. Like, I can't believe after everything I've done, like how you can say this and blah, 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 like make you feel really guilty and ashamed for saying anything, because look at how much I've done. Look at all the love bombing I've thrown on you, because that's the purpose. It's to control you in a particular way.
There is no way for a person to know all of this when they meet someone right away. Yes or no?
No. There isn't a way to know it all, but there is a way to cultivate strong boundaries, to be in touch with your intuition, to trust that you will pick up on other people's energies and other people's intentions. And if you have got a secure sense of self, if you've got an ability to self-regulate, then you will not be looking outside for validation, and they are less likely to get in, and they're less likely to receive supply from you. And then they often will take themselves past and to somebody, unfortunately, that will give them the supply. They won't hang around for long if they can't get it, because they're life force.
Yeah, it's actually a great point to make. You can't know straight away. One of the things I work with people who come to me after their relationships ended is to kind of get themselves if it's a relationship, I should add, if they're looking for, if they've been in a narcissistic romantic relationship and they're looking for a new one, one of the things I help them do is to really start to work with their body and their own gut feelings and their own intuition, so that they can feel when something is right, or or a person is potentially dangerous. So you can learn those things. Unfortunately, we usually don't learn them until after things have gone the wrong way, and then our nervous systems are super on edge and primed to notice those signs.
And that's why it's so important to educate our children about these things, that they have strong boundaries, because then they can have this knowledge in the formative years that we probably didn't get.
That's why it's important to have a narc abuse TV network cup. So I thought I'd stick that in there for Sarah. There's kind of thing. To spread awareness for programs, little small little blimp on the screen programs like ours. But wait, I was thinking to myself, 9 days later, product displacement, just kind of
like cup. Like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
9 days later. 9 days later. Okay, so I want to get to Anashka to say this. I am so happy that you joined us, Sarah. Same for you, Eve, and of course Michelle. All of you for joining. Trisha not being here again. One more time, everybody, say hello to Trisha. Trisha, we miss you. We know you had to work today, but she's going to join us. The full awesome team will be together in the month of January. To do this again. The whole purpose is for, well, everyone to know that there's help out there. You're not alone. You are desired and have value, and you are and have been enough the whole time. They have not been enough. They were cowardly and could not tell you to your face, I am not enough. Goodbye. So they manipulated you. They smeared you. They did a number of things. It's okay, because you have Narc Abuse TV, you have Michelle, you have Eve, you have Sarah, and you have Anashka. Anashka, your YouTube channel is, well, how can I put it? One day I'll grow up and I'll have that many subscribers. One day I'll grow up and no. All right, so tell us more about yourself on the way out.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for watching. My YouTube channel is Ask Anushka. You can just go onto that and have a look. It's just educational videos to help you move past and self-generate and regenerate from toxic abuse.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. My page is Heal the Mum Wound on either Twitter or Instagram. I put up some videos, but mostly just quotes and memes. Purpose is to help you laugh about the situations that you're in, because I got to a certain point in my healing where I was either going to laugh or I was going to really go to rock bottom, and I had to find a way to find some humor in it. So that's the purpose of what I do, but I also do coaching, and I'm working on a program. So if you're interested in that, please send me a message.
Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Eve. You'll find me on Instagram in a very complicated handle, which is going across the bottom of the screen right now, which is at Your Easy Life. If you have a little, put that into the search engine, you'll find me. And I have a couple of different programs. I mentioned my free course, which is a great way to take the first steps. I also have some specific courses in breaking trauma bonds and working to break trauma bonds. You'll find me with a few different videos, and I also run a support group which is totally free, and we meet 3 times a week on Zoom, and that is really at the sharp end, straight out of relationships, around other survivors who are in a very similar situation to you, and we bounce off each other with experiences, with knowledge, with understanding, and a lot of validation and a lot of love. And if anybody's interested in joining that, just drop me a message, and I will do my normal vetting procedure and then invite you in. It's got to be a safe space.
Absolutely. So I'm Michelle, and my Instagram is at Michelle Dixon Healing. It's Dixon, Dixon. I think on the thing it has an extra I in there, but you'll find me. It's okay. You'll find me if you just look at Michelle Dixon Healing. And my main area that I work with is that. Is that piece of releasing trauma from the body and helping you feel recovered and free in your body. And then I do work with people to help you kind of create a life that lights you up. But in terms of the body, I have a little program. It's a $37 online program, and it's just called Releasing Trauma from the Body. And I encourage you to look at it, because what I do is I just help you create a daily practice in as little as 15 minutes a day to learn to start working with your body to release that past trauma and emotion, things like breath, things like movement, learning to read your own emotions. It's a really important piece of the puzzle that I think is great for any kind of healing work you do, just helping you learn how to ground in your body. So yeah, that's me. You can find me on Instagram. And the Instagram will take you to my website. And thank you so much. It's been really great conversation, and I really appreciate actually learning from these other panelists at what they do at the stage that you guys are all at with helping people actually get out of relationships. It's been really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Paxton.
You make me want to cry. That was amazing. Okay, everybody, just so you know, those of you who have been here and will watch this back later, this is our third live show here. We have, I don't know, close to almost 400.
It's our second show.
No. Wait. I love you. I love you both.
Sorry.
I love you both. I really do. But this is our third show here on YouTube. I just wanted to tell you, thank you for that. We will be doing a third show, well, I don't know, next month, right?
Yeah. End of January.
Next month. So you will find these ladies in their own individual homes on Instagram, YouTube, and all that other stuff. Do not go and stalk them at their own individual homes. That was not what I meant. Because Anashka, she won't like that.
No, I've had it done to me before.
I was going to say, all too
no.
familiar. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's time to go. So we appreciate that you came here to Narc Abuse TV Network on YouTube. You will find us also on Instagram. The whole purpose of all of this is so that we can start the conversation for those who are looking to recover, to endure, and to gain free education on free TV. Anashka, Sarah, Eve, Michelle, thank you so much. Trisha will join us again. Everybody, I don't have anything spectacular. I never do. We're out. We're done. Goodbye. We love each and every one of you. But we're out. Take care. We'll see you next time around. Stay tuned for more on Narc Abuse TV Network.